Hello, my name is Jaden Morales. I'm going to talk about my field notes. I had the opportunity to go to E.R. Martin in the School District of Lancaster. I feel like a lot of what they did is actually very coherent according to the students that they had, but there's still some things that they could improve upon in the school. The first student that I had was Giovanni. He is receiving learning support services, so he goes out into Mrs. Cook's room. There's a lot of good in that and then some bad. When he originally came there from Hamilton, they said he needed 3 hours of pull out time, and after meeting him and working with him myself, and as well as with Mrs. Cook, I see that he doesn't need that at all. So she actually shortened it with the agreement with his mother, and to an hour and a half. So he gets out of the classroom for 3 30-minute periods. She doesn't try to do that all in one chunk. In Mrs. Cook's classroom, there are certain things that really benefit for him. She never has more than 3 students in her classroom, and she has 2 teachers in there. So I think that's really nice that they have one-on-one support that they can get from that. Also, the only thing I didn't completely agree on, or I seemed that it was devaluing type of thing, is once they first get in the classroom, there's a little elliptical type of bike, an exercise bike, and they have to pedal and use the bike, and there's the grades K through 4, and you have to read whatever grade spelling words, and you would so example, bath, and you have to say bath, and a B-A-T-H, bath, while the teacher's pointing, and you would just go down the list. But I even asked Giovanni how he felt about this, and he said he kind of felt like he was his hamster at home on the wheel. And so I asked why exactly they do that. It's supposed to be an all-sensory thing, but I don't feel like it's very relevant to what Giovanni needs. Nor is it potent, because he kind of just does it to do it. He doesn't, it's not effective, and he's not really learning something. I do, however, appreciate how supportive it is in that classroom. And when he comes back into the classroom, Mrs. Murphy's classroom, which is the 2nd grade that I was in, is very serious about respect and equality and certain things like that. So most often kids aren't looked down upon. They're kind of just right back accepted in, and if he needs help, I don't see him hesitant to ask his neighbor or the person across from him. So that's really good. I saw him when I was there progress forward. So I even asked him about it, and he said that he loved, his favorite place was in Mrs. Cook's room, and I discussed that in class, and that's hard for me to assess if everything is relevant for him, the services given, because he is having a positive experience. There are 2 ELL students, Angel and Niley. They are silent majority of the day. Angel tends to speak up more than Niley does, but I can tell that both of them just kind of stare sometimes, and you see them in the back of their head trying to figure out if what they're going to say is the right thing to say or the correct answer. So they do not like when if it's at random type of thing. So Mrs. Murphy has a jar, and then there's popsicle sticks, and you pull out a name and you answer the question. And that is not an effective way of teaching at all for her group of students. Throwing it on them like that, it kind of puts them on the spot, and you can see how their self-confidence completely drops. It's just at the end. Angel tends to be a part of the lesson more. Mrs. Murphy does do a good job. I think a great teaching strategy is she scaffolds conversation. So if she's asking them a question, they don't necessarily know the answer, she'll give them a beginning sentence, or she'll ask another guiding question so that they know what the answer she wants is. I feel like Niley, majority of the time, just checks out because she doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't speak up to say, like, hey, I need help. She just kind of sits there, and I notice myself that Mrs. Murphy just not ignores it, but isn't really open to that, like, isn't viewing it. And I told her about that. When I taught my lesson, I made sure that, I've wrapped back around the class and asked if anyone had any questions. She doesn't want to pinpoint out a student for having or needing help. Mrs. Murphy tends to say, everyone needs help sometimes, or Mrs. Murphy, thank you for helping me, or, so it's more of a positive thing. It's not sending out a negative social image. However, at the same time, because she doesn't want to send out a negative social image, she doesn't help as much as I think that she should. So Niley especially just kind of sits there majority of the time. Another student that gets picked out a lot is Andrew C. He has ADHD, and his parents, they know, but he is not on medication. I don't think he needs medication, but he is considered the one with the most behavioral problems because he has that. I noticed that he just likes to bounce around or walk in a circle or something along those lines. But because of that, Mrs. Murphy has a clip chart, and Andrew C. always rocks on about yellow, which is right before red. Not positive at all. I feel as though she calls him out a lot, and his peers see that. And if, the people at his table are more chatty than the rest of the classroom, but because of that, they choose to talk to him. So that way, if the teacher, like if Mrs. Murphy pays attention, she calls out Andrew C. instead of the other people at the table, most often anyway. And so when I had my lesson, I tried to calm the policing in me, and I told any kid that, you can't like rock on your chair because that's a safety hazard, but if they needed to bounce in a place, or if they wanted to stand up when I was listening, they could. And I noticed that Andrew paid more attention when he could stand up rather than if he was obligated to sit in a chair and pay attention, because that was not a coherent way of teaching at all. Also, with the clip up chart, every time a student gets to pink, which is the top, they receive a gem on their little clothespin. And after 5 of those gems, or 5 clips up to pink, they get this Hall of Fame. And I saw that as a serious devaluation of her students, because there is now 2 clothespins on the same 2 girls. So she always claims that, wherever Mrs. Murphy's eyes go first, that's who gets clipped up. But I feel like because she knows what students, I don't think she does it consciously, but the role of the unconscious, like she knows those students will be the people that listen, and she wants a way to control the behavior. She tells the same people almost to clip up or clip down all the time. I think that it's just not an effective way, because you have people that are like Andrew C. that always are on yellow, and the same 5-6 people that are above the green midpoint, and it's not an helpful way. I feel if there is going to be a movement of things, maybe just, I don't know how to police different behavior, but that is just not a coherent way of doing so. Overall, like I said, I had a positive experience. There are some things that they could work on and adjust so that the model of the school is more coherent for everyone. It's relevant, and it's also very potent. They have certain people like Giovanni's somewhat down, but you have to work on something that's for a whole.